AI never sleeps, and this week has been absolutely insane. We have an open source text-to-speech generator that allows you to specify the emotion and tone of the voice within the transcript, giving you way more control over your generation. We also have kind of an open source alternative to Veo 3 where you can generate videos that are in sync with audio. Google drops yet another update to their Gemini 2.5 Pro model, and it crushes everything else even more. This AI can generate gameplay scenes of any video game, and you can actually control these scenes using key presses or a game controller. This AI can generate a super realistic and high resolution model of a person's face. Plus, we have an AI that can generate super accurate predictions of car crashes, out of all things, and a lot more. So let's jump right in. First up, this AI is pretty cool. It's called ShapeLLM Omni, and this is a multimodal model for 3D generation. Think of it as like a chatbot that can understand and create 3D objects. So this can take in a text prompt or an image and generate a 3D model. You can also get it to edit 3D models further just by prompting it like a chatbot. Plus, you can also ask it questions about any 3D model. So here are some examples. You can input a 3D mesh like this, and then write give a quick overview of the object in this mesh, and basically it's able to analyze this and determine that it's a handgun. And then you could ask it follow-up questions like this. But not only can it just analyze and understand 3D models, but it can also generate 3D models. So for example, you can upload this image and get it to generate a 3D model from that. And here is what you get. You can also just enter a text prompt and get it to generate a model that way. So for example, let's say you want to get it to generate a drone with 4 propellers and a central body. Well, that is indeed what it does. And then you can ask it follow-up questions like, why do people need this? Or can you give me more details, etc., etc. In addition to just creating models, you can also take a 3D model and just prompt it to edit the model further. So for example, here you can get it to add storage bags on the side, or here you can get it to put a vase on the table or turn this spout into a chainsaw like this. Now, the results of these 3D generations aren't the best. I've definitely gone over some better quality generators out there like Hunyuan 3D, but this is a nice concept, how it's not just solely a 3D model generator, but it's also a multimodal model which you can chat with. The nice thing is they've released everything already. So the models are all on Hugging Face, plus they've released a GitHub repo with instructions on how to install this and run it locally on your computer. They haven't mentioned the VRAM requirements, but this is only 7 billion parameters, so it should be able to run on most consumer-grade GPUs. Anyways, if you're interested, I'll link to this main page in the description below for you to read further. Next up, we have another AI called FlowMo. Think of this as like a plugin which you can add on top of a video generator to improve the results. It can make the video look smoother and more coherent. So here are some examples. Let's say you're using WAN 2.1, the 1.3 billion parameter version, and you want to get a boy to fly a kite in a field like this. Well, on the left is the raw generation, and you can see the kite is kind of messed up. There's an extra kite that appears out of nowhere. But after plugging this through FlowMo, it kind of makes the quality a bit better and more realistic. At least you don't get this extra kite that appears from nowhere. Or here's another example. As you can see on the left, just the raw output is pretty awful with her limbs warping around everywhere, but after plugging this into FlowMo, it makes the motion a lot more coherent. Here's another example where the prompt is a dolphin jumping out of ocean waves. And as you can see, after adding FlowMo, the generation is just a lot better. Here the prompt is a child jumping on a trampoline, and as you can see, FlowMo's generation is just a lot more realistic. Here's another example where the prompt is a helicopter flying over a forest. Really quickly, here's how it works. So at a very high level, it analyzes the video as it's being generated and adjusts the motions to make it smoother and more natural. It does this by measuring the patch-wise variance of the video, which is like measuring how much the motion changes from one frame to the next. And by reducing this variance, FlowMo can create more realistic and coherent motion. The nice thing is this plugin is model agnostic. So here they've shown that you can use this on top of Wan by Alibaba, which is the best open source video generator out there right now, but you can also apply this to another open source model called Cog Video X. Anyways, they've released the code already, so if you click on this GitHub repo, it contains all the instructions on how to set this up on your computer. Note that they've only released some Python inference code for this, which isn't really intuitive to use. So if this does significantly improve the video quality, hopefully someone in the future could create a Comfy UI node that can be integrated into a Wan Comfy UI workflow. Anyways, if you're interested in reading this further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, this AI is pretty cool. It's called Native Resolution Image Synthesis, and they've created an AI called a Native Resolution Diffusion Transformer, or NIT for short. And this can create images in any size and aspect ratio without needing to be trained on these specific sizes. Now, if you've been playing around with image generation, you'll probably find that most image generators do well only with certain image sizes. So for example, SDXL or Flux generates the best images if they are 1024 by 1024. And then other image generators like Google's Imagen can only generate certain aspect ratios. You can't really specify custom dimensions. But this AI, NIT, can generate the same quality of image regardless of aspect ratio or the size of the image. So here are some examples. Let's say you want to generate a sea turtle. Well, here are all the generations from this AI, but at different aspect ratios and sizes. And you can see all of them look really good. Here's another example of a parrot in all these different aspect ratios. And then here's an Arctic fox, super cute by the way. And the quality of all these images look great even in these different sizes and aspect ratios. It can even generate super wide images like this one, which is 1280 by 256, or this sea turtle, which is 960 by 320, or a super tall image like this one. If you tried to do this with Stable Diffusion or Flux, it starts to fall apart. It just cannot handle such long or wide images because it was never trained on these resolutions. But this AI apparently can generate images at these really extreme aspect ratios even without being trained on this data. And if you scroll up to the top of the page, they've released everything already. So the dataset and the models are all on Hugging Face, plus if you click on this GitHub repo, it contains all the instructions on how to download and use this locally on your computer. Note that the quality of these generations aren't amazing, so if you're looking for quality, I would still go for the state-of-the-art generators out there like HiDream and Flux. But if you do want to generate images in extreme aspect ratios, then this might be a good option for you. Anyways, if you're interested, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, this AI is pretty interesting. It's called Ctrl-Crash, and this isn't just any video generator. Instead, it's trained to generate really realistic videos of car crashes just from a single image. It can also simulate different types of crashes and predict how a crash might happen. Here's how it works. It can generate a video of a car crash based on multiple inputs. One of these inputs is of course the initial frame of the scene. And from that, it can actually generate multiple scenarios. So for example, here it can generate a scenario where there's actually no crash. Here it generates a scenario where the driver crashes, so this is called an ego-only crash. And then here is an example of an ego and vehicle crash where the driver and another vehicle crash into each other. And then here is a vehicle and vehicle crash where we have two other vehicles crash into each other. Now, in addition to generating a car crash video based on just one photo, it can also take in these bounding box frames. These are basically boxes that delineate moving objects in the video. Now, if you only take like the first few frames of this, plus a photo of the initial scene, this AI can actually extrapolate and predict how the car crash would occur. So this last column here is the generation from the AI. This is its prediction on how the car crash would happen. And then the left column is the ground truth. This is the real crash footage. So you can see how similar the generations are to each other, which shows that this AI is pretty good at generating or predicting how a crash would occur based on some initial conditions. You can also get it to generate some counterfactual scenarios. In other words, this is a hypothetical crash that could have occurred under different conditions. So for example, on the left is the ground truth, but for example, for the top row, you could get the car to crash right into you. So here are some other examples. And by being able to generate and predict these different crash outcomes, this AI is actually really helpful in terms of safety analysis and planning. You can see how this footage can potentially be used to train the algorithms for self-driving cars. And they claim that this model is by far the best video generator for simulating car crashes. In fact, if you compare this with other video models like OpenAI's Sora, it's just a lot worse. Anyways, the nice thing is they've released everything already. So if you click on this GitHub repo, it contains all the instructions on how to download and run this locally on your computer. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, this AI called DeepVerse is really interesting. Imagine using an AI to play any video game out there. Well, this can kind of do that. Specifically, it can generate the gameplay of any video game. It just needs to take in one image as the initial frame, plus you can add a text prompt or even press a game controller to control how you want the action to pan out. From this, it can output a really realistic and accurate generation of the gameplay. Specifically, it's really good at understanding physics and lighting and character movements. So here's an example of its physical understanding. If you get this character to run to the right like this, notice that he's gonna hit the wall, but he doesn't just disappear into the wall, right? He just hits the wall just like, a regular video game. Here are some simpler examples. So on the left, the car is driving forward on an empty road at night. On the right, this character walks along a dirt path. And as you can see, both these generations are really good, as if you're actually playing a video game. And then here's an example of its understanding of light. So if you get this character to run along this dirt path with a flashlight illuminating the way ahead, here is what you get. So as you can see from these examples, it's really good at generating all types of video game scenes, including like driving and cars, as well as characters running around. Now, like I said a moment ago, this can even take in your controller inputs to guide the movement of the character and the scene. So as you can see from these examples, the key presses actually influence how the character runs around and how the scene would be generated. So even though this is fundamentally just a video generator, it can actually generate gameplay scenes that are responsive to your prompt or key presses. Here are some other examples where you can control the movements in the scene using key presses. Now, if you've been following my channel, I've already featured a ton of other AI gameplay generators out there, such as Google's Game Engine, which can generate Doom in real time, and also Microsoft's Diamond, which can generate Counter-Strike. However, these two are fixed to the game that they were trained on, right? Google's Game Engine can only generate Doom, and Diamond can only generate Counter-Strike. However, this new one, DeepVerse, can generate any game out there as long as you give it an input frame. So it's pretty cool. Now, if you click on their GitHub, it doesn't look like they've released anything yet, unfortunately, but if you're interested in reading further and checking out more examples, I'll link to this main page in the description below. In other news, if you've been following my channel, you'll know that I'm cheap as hell, and I love free stuff. Well, here's an exciting freebie for you. Microsoft is offering free and unlimited video generations powered by OpenAI's Sora. All you need to do is download the Bing mobile app, and you can generate videos with Sora for free. So here are the details. This currently only works for the mobile app, so you can't just go onto their website to generate videos. And once you've downloaded the app, notice that it can generate 5-second videos and only in a vertical 9:16 format. So this is mostly ideal for social media. You can't generate horizontal videos with this yet, but it is planned for the near future. Each user can generate 10 fast generations, which only take a few minutes to generate, and after you use up those 10 generations, you do get unlimited generations at the standard speed, but this might take hours to process. Note that Sora is kind of old news now, so the quality isn't great. It has already been surpassed by a ton of other models, including the open source One, as well as Google's Veo and Kling, but the quality of Sora is still pretty good. Plus, this is completely free and unlimited, so if you're looking for a free video generator to create social media clips, definitely take advantage of this. In humanoid robot news, we have a new demo of the Figure 2 robot autonomously sorting and scanning packages. Notice that the speed and dexterity of this is way more impressive than the first demo of Figure 2, which they released a few months ago of 2 robots sorting and putting things in a refrigerator. In that demo, they moved really slowly, but in this one, the speed is actually really impressive. Notice that these packages are in different shapes and sizes, but it's able to sort and scan each one. It's even like flattening each package with its hand so that it can be scanned more efficiently. So this is pretty impressive and definitely a huge improvement from the video from a few months ago. Let me tell you about these awesome AI tools called ChatLLM and DeepAgent by Abacus AI, the sponsor of this video. ChatLLM is an all-in-one platform for you to use the best AI models out there. You can seamlessly switch between different models, plus you can use the best image generators out there and the best video generators out there all in one integrated platform. Plus, if you're coding something, they have a really useful artifacts feature so that you can preview your generation side by side. And then for DeepAgent, this is a god-tier AI agent that can do really complex tasks all autonomously. For example, you can get it to create a PowerPoint filled with content, images, and charts. Or here's another example of getting DeepAgent to browse the web and find cheap flights. Or you can even get it to make a dinner reservation. Or you can connect it to Google Workspace and automate your workflows, or connect it to Jira to create an interactive dashboard. There are so many things you can do with DeepAgent, and you can connect it to so many other different platforms. It's gonna supercharge your productivity. Definitely check out ChatLLM that comes with DeepAgent in the description below. Now, a few weeks ago, Google released Veo 3, and this is quite a groundbreaking feature because you can generate video with audio. The characters talk really realistically according to the audio, but this is pretty expensive. Wouldn't it be nice if there was an open source option to this? Well, actually, there are kind of 2 options that were released this week. One of them is called Skyreels Audio, and this can generate videos with people talking based on an input audio. Here are some examples.
Hello everyone, welcome to Skyreels Audio. We look forward to you experiencing and enjoying our product.
So this takes in an input audio, and you can either use an image or a video of a person, and it would basically lip sync the audio to the character. Here are some examples.
昆仑万维成立于2008年，总部位于北京。是一家全球化互联网平台型公司。
And notice it doesn't just move the character's lips and mouth, but his entire body, plus it also animates the background as well. It even works with non-realistic characters like this.
Hello everyone, welcome to Skyreels Audio. We look forward to you experiencing and enjoying our products.
大家好，欢迎来到 Skyreels Audio， 期待您体验并喜欢我们的产品。
Hello everyone, welcome to Skyreels Audio. We look forward to you experiencing and enjoying our products.
大家好，欢迎来到 Skyreels Audio， 期待您体验并喜欢我们的产品。
Now, those examples were just using one input image. You can also input a reference video, but change what the person says. So here's an example. On the left is the original video. They're saying something completely different. Now, if we add an input audio, we can basically get that person to speak out the audio. Now in the middle is another tool that can do the same thing, and on the right is this new Skyreels Audio. Let's see what that looks like.
To ask around, and he called me back very quickly afterwards and said, "You're on a no hire list." A no hire list?
Say you don't want to see this person again. I still think that you should follow up with them. You know, just ghosting somebody after you guys had a good time together is not the nicest thing to do. You know, you want to text that person and let her know that you're still thinking about her, even
To ask around, and he called me back very quickly afterwards and said, "You're on a no hire list." A no hire list?
Now, if you compare this new Skyreels Audio with other AI tools, which can also do lip sync, I've covered a ton of these on my channel before, like OmniHuman and Fantasy Talking and Hello, notice that Skyreels seems to have better consistency and natural body movements.
State, we support agriculture to the tune of 0.4%. Oh, no, wait, I made a mistake. This year they lowered it from 0.4% to 0.38%. And in the same breath, they're saying...
But Diana and Anne smiled at each other. They knew how small Anne Cordelia had come by her name.
在昏暗狭小的房间内，我父亲躺在窗前的地板上，全身素白，显得身子特别长。
Now, if you scroll up to the top of the page, they have released a GitHub repo, but it doesn't look like they've released the code to Skyreels Audio yet. They've only published the technical report. But Skyreels has open sourced their models previously, so you can expect that they'll probably release this feature as well. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further or checking out more examples, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Now, if you are looking for an open source option which can be used right now, this brings us to another tool called Hunyuan Custom. Now, a few weeks ago, I already mentioned this tool when it was first unveiled. So this can do a ton of stuff like inputting reference images of any character or object and generating a video from that just with a text prompt. So here are some examples. You can input this character and this bag of chips, and then you can generate a video from that. Or you can input photos of two characters and generate a video with these two talking to each other. Or you can generate a photo of this woman and then this hanfu and then get her to wear this in a video like this. However, there's way more you can do than just reference to video. So you can also input an audio clip and lip sync that to any character in the video. So here's an example.
宝子看这里，这款口红显色高，气质瞬间提升。
送礼物选它呀，机械手表，高端大气，上档次，超亮眼。
宝子们造型精美的蛋糕。 颜值口味双在线。
Notice that this feature is even better than Google's VO3. Yes, VO3 can also take in an image and generate a video from that, but most of the time you can't actually get the character to talk. Plus, you can't actually input your own audio or voice to use in VO3. It just randomly generates the audio itself, so you can't really control the voice of the character. By the way, if you're interested in learning more about VO3, including its limitations, definitely check out my review video here. But anyways, back to Hunyuan Custom. As you can see, here you have full control over how you want the audio to be in the video. You input the audio first and generate a video from that. So you can have consistent characters with consistent voices. Now, in addition to this audio input feature, you can also input a video and edit or replace anything in a video. So here's an example where you can replace the teddy bear with this husky in the final video. Or here's another example where we can replace one of these clownfish with this whitefish in the reference image. And look how seamless the replacement is. This is such a powerful tool. Now, this week, they finally released both the audio-driven and video-driven models. So notice that now on Hugging Face, the audio and video editing models are now available for you to download. Plus, on their GitHub, this contains all the instructions on how to download and run this. Note that this does require an NVIDIA CUDA GPU with at least 80 gigabytes of VRAM, but I'm sure because this is open source, there's going to be quantized and compressed versions of this really soon that can run on lower VRAM. Also note that for now, there's no official Comfy UI integration for these two models, but I'll definitely keep you posted, and I'll probably do a full tutorial once they release this. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further or checking out more examples, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, this AI is really interesting. It's called Pixel 3D MM, and this creates a really accurate 3D model of a person's face just from a single image. So here are some examples. In the upper right corner is the original input, and at the bottom is the generation from this AI. It creates a 3D model of this person's face. Now, they also compared it with two other 3D face generators called Deca and FlowFace, and the colored parts indicate errors compared to the ground truth. And the red parts are areas where the error is really high. In other words, it's really different compared to the actual person. So as you can see here, this new AI generates the most accurate face, which contains the least amount of errors compared to the other tools. Here's another example. Notice that I think they intentionally used these really tricky facial expressions to see if the AI can generate an accurate face model from that. And again, this new method just contains the least amount of errors compared to the other two previous methods. Note that you can edit this 3D face further. So let's say you have this input image Well, you can first extract the 3D face from that and then convert it into a neutral expression. And if you compare that neutral face to the ground truth, notice that it's pretty accurate. Again, the colored parts of the 3D face indicate errors, and the red parts are where the errors or the differences are the highest. And as you can see, this new AI again contains the least amount of errors, so it generates the most accurate 3D model of that person's face. Here's another example where it's only given this input photo, and the AI kind of has to guess what this person would look like with a neutral expression. So after generating a 3D model of that, again, notice how close it is to the ground truth. In fact, they claim that this method outperforms other methods by 15% in terms of accuracy, especially for faces with different expressions and angles. Here's another comparison with this new tool and other 3D face generators. And here they looked at its normal estimation. If you're not familiar with this term, normal basically means the orientation of the surface. And this bottom row indicates the errors from the generation compared to the ground truth. So you can see that the face generated with this AI again contains the least amount of errors compared to the other models. Now, if you scroll up to the top of the page, they've released a GitHub repo which contains all the instructions on how you can download and run this locally on your computer. So I'll link to this main page in the description below if you're interested in reading further. In other news, Google low-key released yet another upgrade to their Gemini model, which is already the best of the best. And by the way, this is like only a few weeks after their Google I/O event, where they released a ton of insane updates. So they are shipping super fast. Now, this new Gemini model is called Gemini 2.5 Pro Preview 0605, which signifies the date of the release. Not to confuse this with the old version, which is called Gemini 2.5 Pro Preview 0506. You know, it makes me wonder if they specifically chose to release this on June 5th just so they can slap on this name to confuse the hell out of us. Anyways, this new version is an absolute beast. So they claim that it has improved coding abilities as well as improved performance across many different challenging benchmarks which evaluate a model's math, science, knowledge, and reasoning capabilities. So first, if you look at this leaderboard called LM Arena, where users can blind test different AI models, this new Gemini 2.5 Pro is currently ranked number 1 with an ELO score of 1470. And in second place is the previous version of Gemini 2.5 Pro. So, Google is absolutely killing it. Now, this is just the overall rank. If you look at separate categories like math, this new Gemini model is also in first place. And then same with instruction following. And then also same with creative writing, and coding, and hard prompts, and longer queries. So across the board, across multiple categories, this new Gemini 2.5 Pro is ranked number 1. What an absolute beast. If you look at another independent evaluator called Artificial Analysis, again, Google's Gemini 2.5 Pro is ranked number 1. Here it's tied with O3 and O4 Mini, which have the same intelligence score of 70. However, note this huge context window by Gemini 2.5 Pro, whereas OpenAI's models have a much smaller context window. This is basically how much information you can fit in to your prompt at once. So a 1 million token context window means you can fit in like over 700,000 words, or a medium-sized code base. This can take in at least 5 times more information than the other models. Now, yes, it can fit in a ton of data from your prompt at once, but how good is it in actually analyzing and understanding all this information? Well, here's another leaderboard called Fiction Live Bench, which tests an AI model's ability to understand the context of really long prompts. So you can see for the last 3 columns, here is if the prompt is 60,000 words, here is 120, here is 192,000 words. And from this leaderboard, you can see that this new version of Gemini 2.5 Pro performs insanely well, way better than, the other models like O3 and O4 Mini, which are only correct like 58 or 43% of the time. Gemini 2.5 Pro gets it correct over 90% of the time, even though the input prompt is super long. Here's another leaderboard called Humanity's Last Exam. The name is kind of misleading. It doesn't mean we're screwed once AI gets 100%, but this is basically a series of really complicated questions from very obscure scientific domains that most of you probably haven't heard of. So it's basically testing an AI model's knowledge on these really obscure and lesser known subjects. And you can see this new Gemini 2.5 Pro is also number 1 on this leaderboard, beating O3 and O4 Mini. So I think it's safe to say this is objectively the best model you can use right now. And best of all, you can use it for free. So in Google's AI Studio platform, which I'll link to in the description below, in this model dropdown, over here, you can select this latest Gemini 2.5 Pro 0605. Again, not to confuse this with 0506. They mentioned that it's also available in the Gemini app. So you can also go to Google's Gemini platform, and in this model dropdown, you should see 2.5 Pro preview over here. And at least according to the release, this should be the latest version. Anyways, I'll link to both platforms in the description below. In other news, Elevenlabs just released a super realistic text-to-speech model called V3. This allows you to add tags within the transcript to give you ultimate control over the emotion and tone of the output. Plus, you can even specify accents and sound effects. Here's a quick example.
Okay, you've been acting weird all day. What's going on?
I have a surprise for you.
What? Is it a puppy? Please tell me it's a puppy.
No, better. Just close your eyes.
Last time you said that, I ended up covered in glitter.
Fair, but I swear no glitter this time.
Now, I already did a full review on this yesterday, so I won't repeat too much here. See this video if you want to learn more. But you might be wondering, is there an open source version of this? Well, the answer is yes. We kind of actually do have an open source model that was also released this week. So Fish Audio just released their OpenAudio S1 model. This allows you to also add tags within the transcript to control the emotion or tone of your voice. So for example, you can add emotional markers like angry or sad, excited, surprised, sarcastic, etc. You can also add tone markers like in a hurry tone, shouting, screaming, whispering, soft tone, and these special markers like laughing and sighing. Now note that the naming is kind of confusing here. Even though it's called OpenAudio S1, the S1 model is not actually open source. This is the full 4 billion parameter model, and you can only use it on their online platform, Fish Audio, which is actually really good. You can try it out for free, and I highly recommend you give it a shot. But anyways, that's just the full S1 model. What they have open sourced is this S1 mini model, which is a smaller distilled version of the S1. Now, because this is distilled, it's going to be slightly lower quality. It's definitely not as good as Elevenlabs, but this is open source, so it's still worth a mention. They've already released the models on Hugging Face. It's only like 4 gigabytes total, so this should be able to run on most consumer devices. Plus, they've also released a free Hugging Face space for you to try this out online. So let's actually try out a few demos right now. First of all, here are just some advanced settings which you can play around with. I just tend to leave it at the default. And then for reference audio, you just need to upload like 5 to 10 seconds of a voice. So I'm going to upload this female voice first. Let me play the sample for you.
You've been working so hard lately. How about I give you a relaxing shoulder massage?
And then for the input text, let's try this. Laughing, ha ha ha, I forgot what I wanted to say. Here's what we get.
I forgot what I wanted to say.
You know, it's pretty good. It does incorporate laughter here. Plus, it's really good at actually cloning this voice, even though we've only inputted like 6 seconds of her voice. Like I said, after some initial testing, it's not nearly as good as V3 in terms of actually following your audio tags and conveying the correct emotions, but this is a new open source option that we have, which is similar to V3. And like I said, they've already released the models on Hugging Face. Plus, if you click on their GitHub repo, this contains all the instructions on how you can download and run this for free locally on your computer. If you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main release page in the description below. And that sums up all the highlights in AI this week. Let me know in the comments what you think of all of this. Which piece of news was your favorite, and which tool are you most looking forward to trying out? As always, I will be on the lookout for the top AI news and tools to share with you. So if you enjoyed this video, remember to like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content. Also, there's just so much happening in the world of AI every week. I can't possibly cover everything on my YouTube channel. So to really stay up to date with all that's going on in AI, be sure to subscribe to my free weekly newsletter. The link to that will be in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.